Seen before dawn and from afar, downtown Reno is a crown of jewels adorning a basin of lights. From street level and in daylight, it's a graveyard of faded dreams, a desolation of empty buildings, vacant lots, and shaggy, homeless people. In decades past, Reno was famous for its gambling, and still boasts it's the biggest little city in the world. But the action's gone to Indian casinos in California. Now, downtown Reno is but an ember of its former blaze. A few big places resist the creeping paralysis, but the area is desperately in need of renewal. Aging motels, formerly crowded with high rollers, have become the last refuge of Reno's urban poor. Now these motels are victims of redevelopment. I had assumed that homeless people were lazy vagrants. But this scene affected me deeply. They said their rent went up, they couldn't pay, and had nowhere to go. Haunted by their plight, I began to photograph the homeless and ask questions. Widely differing opinions about Reno's homeless soon appeared. Many homeless feel anger and despair. Some more fortunate people want to help. Others oppose aid to alcoholics and drug addicts who refuse to help themselves. Many simply want the homeless to go away, somewhere, anywhere. Follow me into the world of Reno's homeless citizens for a closer look at their plight and what can be done to help them.
Started as several people from the church going down and feeding the hungry by themselves, and then it kept going every month, and more people started going, so they formalized it into a church ministry. We're seeing a definite increase in the amount of people in lines. Our food lines are typically anywhere from 150 to 200 or 300, sometimes 350 people on a given Saturday that we feed, and there are people on other Saturdays that also feed from other groups, other churches. Some of those people in line may not be homeless. They may be one paycheck away from being homeless. We feed them all. We don't ask questions. It's cold out here.
Thousands and thousands of households make ends meet with food stamps and charity.
Hi, here at the food pantry we provide food for an average of 300 families per day. Every Friday we do a farmer's market from 8 o'clock in the morning to 12 p.m. and we do that 4 times per month, and then also people can get their food box once per month.
St. Vincent's Dining Room is Reno's oldest soup kitchen, welcoming all who are hungry. Serving free hot lunches Monday through Saturday, it fed an average of 550 people per day and served more than 170,000 meals in 2018.
The main problem keeping homelessness from being solved is that the issue has been totally misdiagnosed. They're on the street, so apparently there's not enough food, jobs, or housing for them. Wrong diagnosis. The correct diagnosis is there's abundant food, housing, and jobs, and they are unwilling to make the changes in their lifestyle that are keeping them without those things. You have to be willing to stop using, and we work with them on that. We treat them on that. We help them find work, and you find it immediately. We help them go to the 25 food banks. Another factor aggravating the homeless situation is the city council's refusal to direct the Reno Police Department to enforce the municipal code. Being under the influence publicly, aggressive panhandling, sleeping in illegal places, using the bathroom in public, possessing stolen property. It's not helping the people that need the help, and certainly not helping the community. Abraham Lincoln said it best, you never truly help a man by doing for them what they could do and should do for themselves.
Drove around the city and we were looking for a weekly motel because it was at the end of the month and I had only had $300 in my pocket. We found a place. When we got in there, I asked the manager, do you have bed bugs or cockroaches? Of course they don't. We weren't even in there, 2 hours, and we were bit up by bed bugs. You know, they wouldn't give us our money back. And I don't know if anybody's ever been involved with bed bugs before, but they are terrible. They won't let you sleep. You'll be covered in bites all over you, and they infect everything you have. And when you don't have any money, you can't go wash your clothes. You can't go dry them over at the laundromat because with what? You just got to put up with the bugs. After a period of time, the rent on the hotels began to go up. And all of a sudden, this $180 room became $230. And we looked at a monthly rate from it, and they said $550. Within 1 year, that $550 was up to $650. There's no eviction process at a hotel. You don't pay, you get out. And if you don't get out, they call the police department. And the police department come and you vacate the room with or without your property. And generally when the police department comes, it is without your property. Get out. Your time's up. And where do you go? To the streets. And the first place you look, to the Mission. And you get to the Mission and the Mission's full. And nobody's giving up what they got. Especially you go down there and you're mad and you got all your personal problems with you and your personal belongings and you're toting your highfalutin bags. You know, you're bringing your animal with you, and the first thing they tell you, you don't need any of that stuff, you're homeless. So everything that you worked so hard for and to keep is now being thrown into the trash. There are people that are throwing stuff on the ground intentionally because they're mad. There's people throwing fits. There's people trying to steal anything you got because they're gonna go sell it, do whatever they do with it. It's utterly ridiculous, the humanity of it.
Lawn bags.
Lawn bags. And we put all of our stuff in there, one for bugs, so we don't have bug problems, to keep bugs off from our stuff. And then two, we use the bags underneath our blankets at nighttime to keep moisture and bugs out. And then when we went to bed, well, he didn't keep his feet dry or take his shoes and socks off. He just went to bed. And he woke up and he lost his toes over it. He's not the only one in that winter that lost his toes. You're not safe. You don't know what somebody's intentions are going to be when they're drunk or high. I have a friend that's homeless. He's a veteran, and on Veterans Day, he was beaten up. I'll never understand that kind of stuff, other than people telling people that homeless is no, you're no good if you're homeless. You're just a lazy bum, you know? And that's not the truth. In the last 2 years, I have seen more elderly and women and single parents with children coming to the streets.
The ones that fight for disability too.
And the ones fighting for disability. They're disabled. What makes us any different than the person that's sitting at home? We bleed. We cry. We have feelings. We're cold. We're so cold it burns. You can't tell the difference between being on fire and freezing to death because it feels the same. And it's miserable. You can't get away from it. There's nowhere to warm up. There's nowhere to go to the bathroom. I don't know how to get out of this anymore. I used to know how. Things are not the same.
These men are ambassadors, hired by Reno's Downtown Business Improvement District to create a safer, cleaner, friendlier environment for visitors and residents. They patrol the downtown streets and resolve minor problems. Here, they are telling homeless people to move off the courthouse steps. The ambassadors are friendly and courteous, but they'll call the police if the homeless campers don't leave. It's 23 degrees and the ground is wet and covered with snow. There are far more homeless than beds at the shelter, and people can't stay in the shelter during the day. The campers could freeze if their clothes and bedding get wet. This encounter perfectly illustrates the homeless dilemma. On one side of the issue, it's illegal to camp, loiter, block the sidewalks. The public doesn't want our parks, streets, and public buildings to become homeless encampments. They want the police to enforce our laws. On the other side, the homeless physically exist, but have no legal place to go. Volunteers of America operates a homeless shelter on Record Street, under a contract with the City of Reno. People may apply for shelter in person, starting at 10 a.m. The men's shelter has 160 beds. This is the main sleeping area. This room is allocated to veterans. Blankets, a locked storage room, restroom, shower, and laundry facilities are provided. Once accepted into the shelter, men can stay up to 3 months. The shelter also offers counseling, referral, and re-entry training. When the shelter is full, applicants return in the evening and wait for vans to an unmarked overflow shelter, where another 100 beds are available. There are also 50 beds for women and spaces for 27 families. When all beds are full, people are directed to a heated tent or allowed to sit in the day room. The staff makes every effort to provide a warm, safe place to spend the night. Hot dinners are served in the evening. This area, where people sit outside, is called the pit. The shelters are almost always filled to capacity. There are generally about 200 people living on the street, but that number is hard to pin down because people also live on the river.
So here at our Community Health Alliance Record Street Health Center, I am the care coordinator here. We see about 1,300 patients a year. For us, it's easy because we have phones, we have access to the computers, we have access to calendars. Well, our patients don't have all those things. So even if they are given a government phone, where do they charge it? A lot of our patients also lose their medications, and if it's not lost, it gets stolen. Once they lose their ID, their one ID, they have to start a whole process over of trying to get that. And, we need IDs for doctor appointments. We need them for prescription pickups. He has a knee injury that, he says if he were to get that fixed, he would be able to go back to work. Injuries like that happen to our patients all the time. They, whether it's, a broken shoulder, broken hip, something that happens that causes their homelessness. Well, we establish their care here, but if we need to get them to go get a surgery done, it's not as easy as we'd like it to be. For surgeries, usually they need to have a phone to get contacted. Well, some of our patients don't have phones. Where are they going to stay if they need a surgery? They can't really recover in a shelter. They can't recover in the streets. They need a safe place to stay to recover. And not only that, they need a caregiver. They need somebody that helps them during that time period. And we try our best to help our patients. And a big part of our job here at Community Health Alliance is advocating for our patients. They still need these surgeries that might be crucial to getting their life back.
A large percentage of the homeless do have some sort of mental illness, and I would even say a lot of that mental illness is untreated. So we see, and this is kind of a common misconception I think that people have about homeless, is that, oh, they're all just drug addicts or they're all just alcoholics, or and what we find is that the addiction kind of becomes a coping mechanism for them to, in order to cope with living on the streets or staying in the cold. A lot of times what I hear is people say, yeah, I drink to stay warm. This same person may also be suffering from paranoid schizophrenia or like a really serious, severe mental illness. And so the alcoholism becomes kind of like a secondary problem, when really the main problem is their paranoid schizophrenia. So it's really hard to determine which problem did come first, and they both coexist at the same time. Like our going to the doctor, right? If we have to go to the doctor, it's a priority. But for someone that doesn't have exactly, the next meal planned out, then the priority to go to the doctor is going to be a lot lower. So we find that the barriers are a lot higher for the population that we deal with. So someone that is homeless isn't necessarily mentally ill. However, they may be, if they are mentally ill, then they're most likely not taking their medication. It really comes down to a human issue. It really comes down to, treating each other like we're humans, and there's not necessarily this disconnect between whether or not this person's homeless, whether or not this person's, living, in a $3 million house. The problem is still the same. So, it comes down to an awareness of, this is how I treat my fellow human, in terms of, being caring, compassionate, and leading them to help, and really, being concerned about their well-being.
Here's the situation that we deal with, is that when a patient comes into Community Health Alliance, if we need to make a referral out to a higher level of care, the issues that we really run into are going to be really long wait times if we can get them in at all. So clinicians that may not take their insurance, take Medicaid, they may be, their panels are full. So a psychiatrist cannot see more people. They are full. Or if they can, it's going to be months to get in. Nevada's in a unique position in that we're ranked 51st in the nation when it comes to behavioral and mental health services. And so to interpret that, what that means is that we have only one psychiatrist per 14,000 people in the state. 26% of all the people that actually do need mental health services can't get it. And if you're on Medicaid, you have 20% fewer resources than you do if you had commercial insurance.
The homeless population's changed in the last 10, 15 years. It's gotten much larger over the years, but I still believe that addiction is a huge cause of the homeless situation out there. Our focus is on the addiction aspect, not only how it affects the homeless, but society as a whole. It starts off as a social aspect, a way of being accepted, a way of fitting in. And as the addiction progresses, what happens is it gets to the point where you need those substances, either the alcohol or the drugs, to even function in society. And what happens is it just generally goes downhill. The more you take, you still can't function anymore. And by the end of your addiction, you're completely isolated from people. You're starting to feel worthless about yourself. Addiction is one of those things that when you have it, it takes precedence over everything else in your life. We are a 12-step program. We do follow the 12 steps of AA. If we decide that they are going to stay with us and we're going to invest in them, one of the first things they're going to do is they're going to start helping with what we do here. Altogether, we have counted that last year we did 475,000 meals. That's 1,300 a day on this campus. That's including the feedings that we have in here and feeding the shelters next door. A lot of times our addiction is just a result of other life issues that we have. And it's a way that we use to escape from life's issues, from life's heartache, from life's griefs. And so we have classes that kind of deal with the whole person here. When they get towards the end of the program, we'll start setting them up with resources here in town that we partner up with, things like Voc Rehab, Community Services Agency, those kinds of things where if a client after they graduate our program wants to go to school, chances are they can. One of the things that we ask our clients while they're here is if they don't have a high school diploma, they will get one while they're here. So that opens up a whole bunch of other opportunities for them when they leave here. We don't want somebody who can only get a job working at McDonald's or washing dishes to go right back to that when they leave here. We want them to have hope when they leave here. Only about 1 in 3 people that I bring into our program actually finishes our program. It's hard. It's a lot of work. It's a long program. It's almost 1.5 years long, okay? And life happens in that time. And some people come in here, they get sober, they start to feel a little better about themselves, and they think they're ready to go back out there again. I've literally held somebody in my arms, died in my arms in the front step of this place. Okay? I've seen a lot of death over the last 10, 12 years. We just lost somebody this week who was in our program, stayed here about a month, left, and 2 weeks later, he was dead. There's a lot of failure in addiction recovery, but there are those folks that their lives have been changed. They have a chance at life, and the cycle of addiction has been ended in that family, and that's a pretty cool thing. And that's why I do what I do.
Homeless people aren't some special class of humans. They're just people. Some are alcoholics, but people in this neighborhood may also drink too much. Some are addicted to crystal meth bought on the streets. But people in this neighborhood may be addicted to opioids prescribed by their doctors. The real difference between homeless people and other citizens is poverty. The homeless are not all addicted, crazy, or lazy, but they all are poor. Efforts to feed, clothe, shelter, and cure the homeless will not solve Reno's homeless problem. Let's ask what would happen if all these efforts succeed, if all addicts are made clean, all crazy people are made sane, and all chronic vagrants are made industrious. Would Reno's homeless problem be solved? No, it wouldn't. Most of the newly reformed homeless wouldn't be able to afford shelter, even if they were working. Let's look at data from the 2016 census. About 30,000 households in Reno have income of less than $2,500 per month. They can only pay $750 or less for rent and still have enough for other expenses. Now, let's look at places listed by Apartments.com in December. Only 5% were $750 or less. There simply isn't enough affordable housing in Reno. This isn't just theory. Person after homeless person complains of being unable to afford shelter. Assume homeless people become newly minted job seekers. With spotty employment history and few job skills, they'll be limited to wages of $9 to $15 per hour. People making $15 per hour can afford $750 per month rent. But there are thousands of households already competing for the few places available. Reno needs energetic efforts to preserve and increase its stock of affordable housing. Another 600 people could be forced onto the streets for each 1% of affordable rentals lost to redevelopment and rent increases. Over a period of years, Reno's homeless problem could become Reno's homeless crisis.